I had to make a decision. Do I want to live or do I want to die? And I'm certain if I would not have made that decision, I would probably not be sitting here today. I wake up, it's the day after my birthday. I looked around and everything was just in shambles around me. I said, I got to do something. For the third probably time, I got in my life. I mean, I was a homeless addict. And there's a stigma attached to that, but that doesn't define me. The work I do now saved me.
So Chris, 2011, it's 10 below. You lose your job, your house, and your car all in the same day. You're in Wyoming.
Mhm.
You pull your phone out. You look up an NA meeting. You walk out your front door for the last time, and you look, and the NA meeting was a block away the whole time.
The whole time.
So tell me a little bit about that moment.
It felt like it was supposed to happen. I remember just feeling lost, and I needed something to get me. I needed to get out of the situation that I was in. And I remember from years earlier that I'd attended some NA meetings,
Okay.
And I knew that was a safe place. And I knew that there were people there that, were willing to help. It was very interesting. So I go to the first meeting, okay? And this is just how the world seems to work out. I go to the first meeting and, you sit down, you get the phone numbers and whatnot.
Sure.
And I remember leaving the meeting, and now I'm still in active addiction, okay? And I step onto the sidewalk after the meeting, and my my dealer calls me immediately.
Perfect.
Perfect, right? So I said, well, we're about to find out if these guys are for real at NA. Okay, because they gave me these numbers. I'm calling the first number on the list.
Okay.
So I called the number, and back in Wyoming, then you had to call a hotline and listen to a recording to find the meetings.
Sure.
And whatnot. So I called this guy. I said, yeah, so I'm struggling right now. This is what just happened. And he says, don't worry, meet us at Village Inn. We'll go have coffee and pie.
Okay.
So I go to Village Inn and sit down, and he brings this guy with him. And I said, man, your voice sounds really familiar. He's like, did you call the hotline? It was his voice on the hotline. Yeah. Fast forward, he ended up being my sponsor. And yeah, that was a very important time in my life. I had to make a decision. Do I want to live or do I want to die? And I'm certain if I would not have made that decision, I would probably not be sitting here today.
Can you tell me a little bit more about what led to that moment? Do I want to live or do I want to die?
Desperation.
Okay.
Desperation. There was nothing left. There was absolutely nothing left. It was either get your shit together or the streets. And I'd been on the streets before, I've been homeless before.
Okay, so that wasn't the first.
That's not the first time.
Okay.
No, that's not the first time. And of course it was due to my addiction the first time. And again, I was just tired. I was tired. I was lonely. I didn't have any connections. And that was something that probably drove me as well, as I needed to connect to something. I had always been on this island, and I'd never let people in that much, because if I let you in, you know who I am. You know what I do.
Mm.
And and I wanted to hide that. But going through recovery, you have to be honest. You have to look at the things you don't want to look at, especially when it comes to yourself.
So that was 2011.
Mm-hmm.
It's 2025
Yeah.
now. Talk to me a little bit about that moment.
Mhm.
What was birthed out of that moment, or what began as a part of the journey at that time, or where did that pick up and start to run with as a part of your journey?
Man, it took a while.
Okay.
It took a while. Yeah, a lot of people think that, you're not using anymore, you're okay.
Mm.
I still had a lot of damage that I'd done to my mind, my body, repairing relationships. My work history wasn't all that great,
A few gaps in there.
few gaps in there, just a few. So it took time. It didn't happen overnight. And it was very, very, very difficult for me mentally, um, because there was just so much left over from my addiction, you know, those demons, those you're laying in bed and all of a sudden you remember something, you know, and it takes a while to get over that. And I truly, I don't know if I have my moments, you know, but it worked out. It worked out, but it was a struggle. I mean, it took me, man, it was 2015. I'm in Wyoming. Was it 2015? 2015. I'd been out of recovery for about 6 months, and I get a phone call that my great grandmother had passed away. Now, she raised me, her and my great grandfather. So I went back to South Carolina, you know, for the funeral or whatnot. And I came back to Wyoming. Now, this is something many people don't know, what I'm about to say here. I came back. I'd been, I think I'd been sober close to a year. So when I got back to Wyoming after I left South Carolina from the funeral, I relapsed.
At the funeral?
When I got back to Wyoming.
Okay, got it.
But that was another aha moment, I guess you could say, because I beat myself up so bad for doing that. And it wasn't fun anymore. You know, I remember in the beginning it was fun, you know, but it wasn't fun anymore. And that was enough to let me know that you're done. You're done, you know. Now, the thing about that is when I decided to go out and I relapsed, I came back and I didn't have a place to live or a job again.
Okay. So I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And no job.
Yeah.
No place to go back to. What do you do?
Well, I found out then that my great grandfather was diagnosed with cancer, terminal. So I went back to South Carolina to help take care of him. And he passed away. When he passed away, and you know, it was a town of 400. I didn't have any. There was nothing there. No jobs. I didn't have any money. So I found myself unhoused again, living in a town of 400 people in a field. Yeah. Yeah.
When is this? Approximately?
This is around 2000. This is around 2018.
Okay.
It's around 2018.
So homelessness and being unhoused was such a key piece of your story,
Yeah.
right? So you're talking about addiction, struggling with that. Obviously, you talked about, and we haven't gone there, but loneliness, isolation, feeling disconnected. That brings us up to that time period. What happens?
Well, this is when the story gets good.
Okay.
Yeah. I wake up and it's the day after my birthday. I looked around and everything was just in shambles around me. And I said, I got to do something for the third probably time, you know, I got in my life. I got to do something. Now, this time wasn't even from addiction. I was just depressed and just circumstance. And, you know, depression is a son of a bitch, you know? So
especially sober.
Especially so, man,
I mean, it's next level.
It is because I can feel everything now.
Right.
Because I can feel everything. But I left there and went to a homeless shelter in the town, you know, 30 some odd miles away. And I started working, saved up some money. I did lose a job in there, but that's not important because it was probably a good thing because it forced me to leave again. So I came to Grand Junction, Colorado.
Okay.
Yeah.
So from the southeast.
From the southeast, a town of 400 people.
You ended up in Wyoming, which is a totally different part of the story. Right. But then you're going to leave South Carolina and go to Grand Junction, Colorado.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I know a lot of people ask questions about that. My mom and my little brothers had moved out here probably 10 years ago. Okay. Maybe a little more. And I said, well, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this with family around. So when I came out here, again, I stopped at a homeless shelter. And from there, I just something, a spark, something that I'd never had before. Uh, this drive, uh, and this hope.
Mm.
It's kind of like for one of the first times in a long time, I could see something good happening in my life.
Why? How did you get to that place of going from hopeless, depressed, not seeing a path, not seeing a future to hope? Was there a moment in there or what changed?
It was gradual.
Okay.
It didn't happen overnight. It was a gradual thing to where, and therapy does help, by the way. Uh, it was a gradual thing to where I remember one day I woke up and I'm like, I'm on my way to work and I was like, man, I haven't, I feel pretty good. And I started thinking, man, I've been feeling pretty good for a while. And it was kind of like that moment. Okay, you're finally getting somewhere. You know, you're not depressed. Uh, you're not having those what I call flashbacks from addiction. You know, and it it gave me hope. And I was like, man, this is it might be a brief reprieve, but I'll take it. And and then I started looking around me. At the shelter. I started looking around me at all the things that were happening in the community, and I wanted to help.
And were you still living at the shelter at that time and working, or had you moved on from living at the shelter into your own place?
So I when I got to the shelter, I started volunteering,
Okay.
and then I was the janitor for about 8 months. And part of that time, I did live at the shelter, but probably I don't know 6, no, not even 6, probably 3 to 4 months into being a janitor at the shelter, I moved out.
Okay.
I moved out of the shelter. I rented a room,
Got it.
with some friends and
Sure.
whatnot. So yeah, that was a real important time for me as well, because it'd been a long like I said, 2015 since I'd really been self-sufficient,
Mm.
or didn't have this big load to carry, so to speak. But I re I remember thinking to myself when I was at the shelter, I was like, "Man," and I remember as a kid, all I wanted to do was help people, like, my whole life. All I wanted to do is help people. I wanted to just be a good person and help people. But, uh, life kinda happens, and I found myself in a position where I had the opportunity to do that. Okay, this is nonprofit. This is clearly the work we're doing is helping people, and that was enough for me to hold on, keep going, because every day it's one of those things, every day you can come in and you can see the difference being made.
Mm.
And I think that was important, especially when maybe it's still a little bit at addictive behavior. It's that gratification in a sense, it's that stimuli. And I still get that when I walk in to work every day. And, you know, there was a lot of struggles as as I was moving up in the organization. Uh, there's a lot of times I just didn't feel like I should be in the room or be there, uh, or that when I when people see me, they see everything I've done, or they still see the addict, you know.
Mm.
And it took me a while. And I don't, I say it doesn't bother me now, but that'd be a lie. I still, on occasion, those thoughts seep in. Yeah. Do they do they really know who I am? You know? Not that I'm a bad person. I mean, I was a homeless addict, and there's a stigma attached to that. But that doesn't that doesn't define me, you know. Uh the work I do now uh was saved me, so to speak. It saved me. Without without I don't know what I would be doing if the work that I do didn't make a difference. I'm not the person. I can't sit in an office and just sit at a computer all day. I can't go and I mean I have, but that's just not me. I've never been happy doing things like that. Um, but but I love this. I love what I do. And uh, I'm still growing. Um, and, going through this process, I had to, you become more self aware as your mind clears up and you're, removed from, being unhoused and you're removed from addiction. You get that moment of clarity. And, it was things were, even though you have that moment of clarity, you still have, uh, I guess it might be some ego that might have been attached to some of the behaviors I still had.
Mm.
You know, I I can be sharp in my delivery. I can be a little harsh sometimes. And, part of growing for me, and again, getting rid of that addictive behavior was kind of looking at myself and saying, well, you know, if if the way I'm communicating with people, if it's not working, and of course, I'm telling myself I'm not doing anything wrong.
Of course.
But if it's not working, I probably need to adjust something, I probably need to change something. I probably need to work on myself if it's going to, if it's going to, if it's going to help me get my message across, or if it's going to help me in my personal life, or it's going to help me at work to accomplish something. I probably need to just chill out a little bit. You know,
Mm.
I like, I remember when some of the first meeting, I used to be so loud, like, and this is it. This is what we got to do. And now, all right, everybody else can talk, and I'll just kind of sit there and listen. And uh, that took a lot of growth and a lot of, some good mentors sitting beside me, kicking me under the table, like,
Sure.
stop, stop, stop right now. And it's a blow. It was a blow to my ego to realize that I'm a perfectionist,
Mm.
to realize that I was doing something wrong,
Mm.
you know, and because I still struggle with that. I like, it's really hard for me to mess up, but I know now that's part of life. I'm going to mess up, and I learn a lot from it. And nobody's perfect.
No.
So I'll leave that right there. Nobody's perfect.
So I'm curious because you mentioned this desire inside to help people and that had been around long before you changed your life, long before you went through these transformations. You've gotten to where you are now. I find it very interesting how many of us that went through a lot of trials and tribulations, addiction, mental health, whatever it is, even during those times, we're like, man, if I had the opportunity to help others. Any reflection or insight on where that came from for you? The desire to help others?
I rem- there's one moment when I was a kid that I don't always think about it, but this is what it reminds me of. My great grandparents wanted to buy a new vehicle one day. They couldn't afford the vehicle they wanted, and I was a small kid, so I didn't get the concept of money really. So I remember saying, "Man, why are things so expensive?" I said, "When I get older, I'm going to sell cars for $2." I remember saying that. And my grandmama was like, "Why would you do that? To help people, like to help people like us. You can't afford what you want, but one day I'll be able to help people." And I think about that often. It's always been there. I don't know where it came from. I really don't. It's just always been there. Just a servant is kind of like how I look at myself now. You know, um, be a servant leader. You know, um, yeah.
It was interesting for me, and I've done some reflecting on this for myself because hospitality and service
Mhm.
are two concepts that are so just like intrinsic, like they're just part of who I am, is loving to serve and loving to greet people in a certain way and make them feel welcome and all of this. And someone asked me recently, they said, like, why is that? And I was like, I've never actually asked myself that question. I boiled it down to something very simple, was I think it was what I always wanted someone else to do for me. And so therefore that's what I ended up bringing to the world in this way, was like, I always wanted to be seen
Yeah.
in that way. And so But it wasn't until being 40 years old, I mean, literally a month ago,
Yeah.
that someone asked me the question that helped me reflect on why hospitality is so important to me and why service is so important to me in these ways. As I had never made the connection, and that for me, it was that I wanted someone to show up and say, I'm glad you're here, Chris.
Right.
And here's a water bottle. Come on in, sit down. And what can I get for you? And how I can treat you this way. Because I think for so many years of my life, I was wanting others to do that for me. And I had never experienced it.
Yeah,
It was a very interesting reflection for me.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I mean, you saying that kind of makes me think a little bit, because I do catch myself when I have those conversations, the tougher conversations, thinking, I wish somebody would have done that for me. You know, I do think about that. So, that's why I don't pull a lot of punches when it comes to those serious conversations. You have to be really honest with people, and tell them what they don't want to hear. And I wish there was somebody around that would have done that for me when I was, misbehaving. Yeah. But yeah, again, there's a lot of learning, and a lot of growth. And I guess a lot of it might come, I just turned 41 in September. So yeah, the older you get, there's something that happens there. It's something changes. I can't quite put my finger on it, but certain things start to matter and certain things don't matter anymore. You know, I remember I used to I had to be doing something. I always had to be doing something. And now I find myself wondering, I'm okay with just sitting here right now. Like I don't feel the need to do any of the things that I used to do. I don't feel the need to be around people all the time. I find peace uh, sitting at home. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Talk a little bit about what you are doing now. You've gone through all of this, and you have now created a life around being able to help, being able to create impact, being able to serve. Tell us a little bit about that.
The work?
Yeah,
The work.
sure.
Well, I'm the chief operating officer for a nonprofit, and with the organization, it was a ride because I didn't start off there, of course.
No, you started as a janitor.
Started as a janitor. Yeah, I started as a janitor, and I'll tell you, there's one more moment that gave me a little bit of drive while I was a janitor. And I'm gonna squeeze this.
Yeah,
in real
please.
quick. I remember there was a position that opened up, right? And I did not know that the position was opened up, right? And so someone else got hired for it, and I went to the supervisor. I was like, man, I wish I would have known that job was available. I would have applied for it. And they looked at me and said, you don't have the skills we're looking for.
Hmm.
I'm gonna show you.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna show you. So I just buckled down that much more, and I became a guest service coordinator. And I did that for a few months. Then I became a lead guest service coordinator. Then one day, I came to work, and we'd had a new CEO for about, I don't know, 3 to 4 months. I come to work one day, and I go in my office, and there's a piece of copy paper, just sitting on my desk. And there's something I can see from a distance. There's something written on it in Sharpie. I'm just thinking somebody left me a note.
Sure.
And it says, Chris, welcome to your new world. And I was like, I don't know what this means.
Okay, nothing else.
Nothing else.
So
That's all it
okay.
said. That's all it said.
All right.
So I flip it over, and there was a document. And I guess that day I was the director of administration and operations. Yeah, just like that. And I was like, this is uncomfortable in a sense because I didn't expect it, and I was like, man, all this is happening so fast. Because one thing that people don't realize is this journey, from a janitor to COO happened pretty fast. And there's a lot of times I had to stop and sit back and soak things in. And it was literally uh, uh, fixing the engine while the airplane's flying, in a sense, when it came to me.
Mm,
You know, I'm going full steam ahead, but I'm working on myself at the same time,
right.
you know. So, yeah, eventually, after being the director of administration and operations for a while, I became the chief of staff for the organization, and eventually COO, like I am now. And again, I love what I do. I would not trade it for the world. I would not. And I'll tell you, you know, one of the reasons that I wanted to stick around and do this work is because, we look at members of the unhoused community and they get pigeonholed into certain types of employment, like work at a gas station, work at a warehouse, something like that. Well, I wanted to show them that anything is possible.
Mm,
Anything. You know, I tell people all the time, there's only one thing. There's only one thing that's going to guarantee that you don't get where you want to go, and that's if you quit. Okay. If you keep going, you will get somewhere. It might not look like what you thought it would look like. Okay. But it will be better as long as you don't quit. And that is something I really believe in, you know, and along with the fact that, every human life, no matter the circumstance, holds the same value. Does not matter. Does not matter. You can't be in the line of work that we're in and be judgy.
mm.
You know, I know how it feels to be judged. And if I look at, anyone and say that they're a lost cause, what if someone would have done that with me? What if the organization would have looked at me and said, he's homeless, that's all he's going to be? You know, maybe he can get a job at Walmart, which nothing's wrong with that.
Sure.
But I know that that would have not been fulfilling for me, you know? So again, it's giving people hope.
Well, and you're in a place now, obviously, to show somebody
Yeah.
through your own life
Mhm.
exactly what's possible. And I imagine for you that this is not where you're going to stop.
Oh, no. No, 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 no.
So tell me a little bit about that. Like, what's the fire that burns inside? What does the future hold
Oh my goodness. That is
for Chris Masters?
I'll be honest. That is a very good question. I get asked that question often and I never have an answer.
Mm,
I, I haven't thought that far ahead, to be honest with you. I'm so locked in right now, Chris. I'm just locked in. And I know that there's more out there, but it'll happen organically. That's how I feel. That's how everything else. I don't force things, you know, but I know there's more. I know there's a hell of a lot more, and I'm looking forward to it. Yeah. Again, I don't know what that's going to look like, but as long as I don't quit, I'll get somewhere. Yeah.
well, and I think part of the message is that we probably would shortchange ourselves if we even tried to figure out what that's going to look like.
Right.
To your point,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah. If I say, okay, this is what I'm going to be in 2 years, and I work towards that, I could have missed a lot of other opportunities.
I know you've created even passion in me from the first time that we met within a world that is not what I do, right? I am not in how do we look at the unhoused in a way, although it touches the work that I do and it is part of that work. It's definitely not an area that I feel like an expert in or any of that. And I'll never forget when you said, and you can correct me on the stat if I'm wrong with this, but that there were 942 unhoused youth
Yeah. That's about right.
in our community.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's
So
about right.
close enough.
Yeah.
And I know that I have thought about that
Yeah.
consistently and thought we have to do better.
Well, I mean, you think about this, a child only accounts for, a third of a household. So do the math. Okay. And it's not only the, when you're driving around, the unhoused that you see, it's the hidden homeless. It's the hidden homeless. It's the folks that are sofa surfing, staying with grandmother, staying with grandfather, um, living with friends, different things like that. There's just so many subsets of that population. Um, it's tough to think about sometimes. Well, all the time. It's tough to think about because as soon as you have a success with one person, there's going to be somebody else that steps in that's going to need that same assistance, and it just never stops. You know, I tell folks, we're in the business to put ourselves out of business.
Right.
That would be my dream, is to come to work one day and I'm not needed anymore. You know, um, we're a ways from that. Uh, but I know that there's an end in sight, and I know that I just know we can't stop. I know we can't stop. And there's some light at the end of the tunnel. And just to see the beauty and the struggle, I guess you could say, from some, so, from a lot of our clients, to see folks come in broken-ish, kind of like myself. And I can relate to that. And to see, I like to take photos because they have IDs, and we take a photo when they first come in. And then when they get ready to leave, I like to take another photo, and we put them side by side. And it's like, holy hell, like you're not even the same person. Because I remember someone did that for me when I was at the shelter, and I was like, yeah, I don't recognize that guy anymore, because there's a little bit of him in me, but all that noise, all that angst, it's just not there anymore.
Right.
It's just not there. And yeah, I know how it feels to be down and out. I know how it feels to get out of that. And that's what I want for other people. That's what I want for other people. And we see it every day. And that's one of the things that keeps me going. Yeah. It's those successes. But when you see the struggle, that keeps me going too, because we got to fix it. We got to help. We got to help the situation.
Right.
Yeah.
Chris, thank you for being here today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
I imagine this is going to unlock a whole lot more conversations moving forward. And
absolutely. This is just the tip of the iceberg.
Oh yes. A deepening of a friendship,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
hopefully more and more time on these seats.
Yeah.
Having some real conversations, hard truths, and sparks of possibility from a world that's a little broken-ish.
Broken-ish. Yeah.
See you next time.
See you next time. Thank you, Chris.